He fixed the stranger's busted-up bike for free, and 24 hours later, 7 black SUVs were parked outside his house. The sun was dropping low over Tyler, Texas, casting a thick orange glow over everything like the heat had a color. It had been one of those heavy, sweaty afternoons that sticks to your skin even in the shade. Most folks were either indoors or counting the minutes till they could be. But Darnell Booker wasn't most folks. 29 years old, quiet type, worked with his hands, didn't say much unless he had to. Folks who knew him at Cliff's Auto and Tire said he could rebuild an engine with his eyes half closed. And most days, that's exactly what he did. Kept to himself, head down, focused. It was about 5:30 when he heard it. That clink, clink, clink of metal dragging on pavement. Not the kind of sound that comes from a car, more like a bike chain, loose and rattling. He looked up from under the raised hood of a silver Chevy Malibu and saw her. Tiny frame, wispy white hair, maybe late 70s, early 80s. She was walking that old rusted bicycle like it had betrayed her halfway through the trip. The front wheel wobbled, the chain was hanging like a broken necklace, and her hands were shaking with every step. She looked like she hadn't had a cold glass of water in hours. Darnell didn't even think about it. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked straight out to the edge of the shop lot. "Ma'am, you okay?" She looked up, eyes watery, skin like parchment, and a voice soft as linen. "It just stopped working. I live over on Morningside. Was just going to the corner store." He nodded slowly. "Let me take a look at it." She hesitated. "I don't have any money." He shrugged. "Didn't ask you for none." That got her to smile. Back inside the garage, the other guys had already clocked out. The boss, Victor Redman, big red face, always in a hurry, was long gone. Darnell set the woman on a folding chair, brought her a bottle of cold water from the back fridge, and got to work. The bike wasn't just rusty. It was ancient, probably older than Darnell himself. Tires dry-rotted, brakes gone, chain full of grime and dust. But the frame was still strong. He could work with that. He spent the next hour quietly fixing the bike, replaced the chain, cleaned the gears, pumped the tires, found a spare bell and bolted it on, just because. It wasn't perfect, but it'd roll smooth now. When he wheeled it back out, the woman's face lit up like a porch light. "You didn't have to do all that." "I know," Darnell said, handing her the handlebars, "but I wanted to." She looked at him, long and hard, like she was trying to remember something. "You got a good heart, young man. Not many like you out here." He smiled, eyes low. "Just glad you made it back home." She reached out, gently touched his arm. "What's your name?" Darnell Booker." "Well, Darnell Booker, you might have just changed my whole week." Then she rolled off, slowly, pedaling careful and steady down the street. The little bell, he added, giving a soft ding every few feet. Darnell didn't know her name, didn't ask. To him, it was just another good deed, another day at the shop. But by morning, the world would know exactly who that woman was. But for now, all he knew was that he was about to walk into the shop and lose the job he'd given everything to. By 7:50 the next morning, the Texas sun was already punching the sky like it had something to prove. Darnell pulled into the lot of Cliff's Auto and Tire, driving the same beat-up 97 Tacoma he always did. Green, chipped paint, back window taped with plastic. It wasn't pretty, but it ran. He stepped inside like he had 100 times before. Quiet, early, ready to work. The place still smelled like rubber and burnt oil. But something was off. Victor Redman was already there. Now, Victor didn't show up early for anything. Man wouldn't open a shop before 9 if the building was on fire. But today, he was standing near the front office with his arms crossed, jaw clenched, and that big red face already sweating. "You got a minute, Darnell?" Darnell looked at him, then glanced at the time clock. "Yeah, what's up?" Victor jerked his head toward the break room. "Come back here." They walked in silence. The air felt heavier than usual. Soon as the door closed behind them, Victor turned. "I heard you stayed late yesterday." Darnell nodded. "Yeah, just helping somebody out." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Ain't what I heard. I heard you took company time to fix some lady's busted-up bike. For free." Darnell didn't flinch. "Shop was closed. I used old parts. Stuff we were going to throw out." Victor took a step forward. That ain't your call to make. She was struggling, man. She could barely walk. I wasn't going to let her fall out in the street. Victor's voice dropped, tight and slow, like he was holding back a yell. You think this is a charity? You think folks just come here, we give out freebies like candy? Darnell didn't say anything. He knew better than to argue with a man like that. Victor shook his head, laughing without humor. You know what? You're done. What? You're fired. Get your tools. Get out. Darnell stared at him, blinking slow, making sure he heard that right. For fixing a bike? For disrespecting how I run my business. Darnell stood still for a second, jaw working like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then he turned and walked out. He didn't slam the door, didn't curse, just packed his tools in that same dented red box he'd brought with him on his first day 4 years ago. He didn't even look at Victor when he left. Outside, the heat hit him like a wall, but he didn't care. He sat in his truck, hands gripping the wheel, heart thudding in his chest like a slow drum. He'd given that place everything. Showed up early, stayed late, never complained, covered for guys who called out, fixed cars on holidays. And this was how it ended? For doing the right thing? He exhaled slow, turned the key, and drove home. Later that afternoon, he sat on the old porch swing outside his duplex, sipping warm iced tea and replaying everything in his head when his phone buzzed. Text from a number he didn't recognize. Is this the man who fixed the bike for my grandmother? He blinked. Before he could reply, another message came in, a video link. He clicked it. The screen lit up with footage of the old woman. Someone had recorded her outside a grocery store holding the same bike, her voice cracking with emotion. This young man, I didn't catch his name, but he saw me struggling and fixed my bike like it was nothing. He didn't charge me. He didn't ask for anything. He just helped. I wish more people in the world were like him. The video had barely been up 2 hours, and it was already pushing 90,000 views. Comments were flying. He's a real one. Where is this man? Somebody find him. I don't even know him, but I'd hire him today. Darnell stared at the screen, stunned. That simple moment, the one that cost him his job? Now, strangers from all over were talking about it like he was some kind of hero. But what he didn't know was that the woman he helped wasn't just anybody, and her people were watching. By the time the sun dipped again behind the trees, that video had crossed 1 million views. Darnell didn't even have a Twitter or TikTok. He had a Facebook account he hadn't touched in months. But his name? It was everywhere now. The mechanic with a heart. Texas man fired for helping elderly woman. Who is Darnell Booker? That last one, it felt strange. Like he'd become a character in someone else's story. His cousin Tyree called him from Dallas. Bro, you on CNN's website? Quit playing. I'm dead serious. I just saw your face in a thumbnail. I was like, that's my cousin. That's D. Darnell couldn't wrap his head around it. All this because he'd done what his mama raised him to do? Treat people with care. Look out for the elderly. Don't turn your back when someone needs help. It felt surreal. But somewhere across town, Victor Redman wasn't enjoying the same fame. Back at the shop, things were boiling over. Victor's phone was blowing up. Old customers were calling to cancel appointments. One woman stormed into the lobby with her phone out, live streaming. You the one who fired that man for helping my aunt? Victor shouted from his office without opening the door. No comment. She didn't stop filming. Another man left a 1-star review every hour on the hour. By the end of the day, Cliff's Auto and Tire had dropped to 2.3 stars. Even Yelp had flagged the business for unusual activity. Victor thought it'd blow over in a couple days. He was wrong. Meanwhile, Darnell had finally gotten the name. He got a knock at his door around 8:15 p.m. He looked through the blinds and saw a delivery man holding a small envelope and a clipboard. No box, no bag, just that envelope. You Darnell Booker? Yeah, got something for you. Sign here. He signed, took the envelope. The guy walked off fast. Inside, he opened it slowly, like whatever was in it might bite him. Inside was a note. Handwritten, expensive paper, gold trim, 1 sentence. Thank you for helping my grandmother. S.R. He flipped it over. Tucked inside was a contact card. No phone number, no title, just initials. S.R. and a custom embossed logo of a falcon in mid-flight. What kind of regular person sends stuff like this? He showed it to his neighbor, Miss Paulette, who was old school and didn't play with technology, but knew half the city through her church connections. SR, she said, squinting at the card. That's Simone Rayner, baby. Who? You don't know who that is? Darnell shook his head. Miss Paulette laughed out loud. Lord, you really don't be on the internet, do you? Simone Rayner owns half the commercial land in East Texas. She got contracts with companies in 3 states, private schools, hospitals, energy firms, you name it. He blinked. She's also a lawyer. One of them who ain't just got money, but reach. Real quiet. Real powerful. Her family been out here since back when black folks had to sit in the back of the diner. Darnell leaned against the porch railing, head spinning. So that old lady was Simone Rayner's grandmother? He sat with that thought all night. Didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not because he was scared, but because he knew how these things usually went. Rich people moved in silence, but when they moved, it mattered. The question now wasn't what happens next. It was when, and who else might be watching. By the next morning, the tone around town had shifted. People were talking. News vans started circling the auto shop. Victor was seen cursing in the parking lot, throwing papers in the trash and slamming the back door. Meanwhile, Darnell was back on that same porch, same swing, same warm tea, still wondering what to make of all this. Then, his neighbor's cousin pulled up out front in a dusty gray sedan. She leaned out the window. You might want to turn on your TV, baby. Something's going on over at Redmond's house. But Darnell didn't need to turn on the TV. He was about to get front row seats. Victor Redmond lived about 15 minutes outside Tyler, off a long gravel road lined with pine trees and rusty wire fences. His house wasn't a mansion, but it sat on land. A big square driveway, a custom grill on the porch, 2 flags flapping in the wind out front, one American, one Texas. He always said he liked his peace and quiet, but peace was the last thing he got that morning. Darnell was brushing crumbs off his shirt when his neighbor Jerome came pounding on the door. Bro, you seen this? You gotta see this. What you talking about? Victor, his place. Man, just come look. They rushed across the street to Jerome's living room, where the flat-screen TV was paused on a still image from a local news drone. Aerial view, wide shot, 7 big black SUVs, all parked tight across Victor's driveway like a private blockade, tinted windows, matching license plates, the kind of vehicles you only saw in movies or outside federal buildings. No police sirens, no flashing lights, no yelling, just pressure. Silent, deliberate pressure. Back at Victor's place, he stood frozen in his doorway, barefoot in sweatpants, coffee sloshed onto the porch boards. What the hell? He stepped outside slowly, eyes scanning the SUVs. The engine of the first one was still running. It purred low, like a warning. The front doors opened in near unison. From each vehicle, a person stepped out, men and women, all dressed sharp. Not flashy, not loud. Sharp. Tailored suits, clean shoes, earpieces, calm faces. One woman stepped forward. Black slacks, gray blouse, short afro, eyes like glass. She didn't say her name, didn't need to, just held out an envelope. Victor didn't take it right away. What is this? She didn't flinch. An offer? What kind of offer? The woman tilted her head slightly. The kind you only get once. Victor looked around as if someone was going to jump out and say he was on some prank show, but nobody laughed. He took the envelope, opened it slow. Inside was a single sheet of paper. He read it twice, and his face changed. From angry to confused to scared. The woman spoke again. You have 24 hours. After that, this is no longer an offer. It becomes a consequence. Then, one by one, they all got back into the SUVs. Not a single word more. Doors closed, engines still humming low. Victor stepped back, blinking, shoulders slumped, like he'd just been told his house was on fire and he couldn't save anything inside. At home, Darnell sat on Jerome's couch, staring at the screen in disbelief. You think they're feds? Jerome asked. I don't think this got nothing to do with the government, Darnell said quietly. Then he saw it. A brief close-up as one SUV pulled away. Etched into the side panel near the license plate was a tiny falcon symbol. The same symbol from the note. Simone Rayner. She wasn't sending threats, she was sending a message. Word spread quick. You couldn't block off a man's driveway with 7 black SUVs and expect people not to talk. Some folks said it was a stunt. Others said Victor owed money. But most people, especially the ones who watched the video of the old lady from the store, had a different theory. She's got people looking out for her, they said. And if Darnell was the one who looked out for her first, well, he probably had folks looking out for him now too. Later that afternoon, Victor closed the shop. Didn't say why, just locked up early and put a sign on the door, out for repairs. Nobody believed that. He wasn't the kind of man who took sick days. Darnell still hadn't reached out to the woman, hadn't called, hadn't responded to the note. But he kept it on the table next to his keys. He knew this wasn't over. The kind of people who move in silence don't make noise unless it's for a reason. They were planning something, and Darnell had a feeling it was bigger than a bike. But what he didn't know yet was why she chose him. It was the kind of morning where the air felt too still. No breeze, no birds, just heat rising early and slow, like the day was holding its breath. Darnell was tying his shoes, getting ready to take a walk, maybe clear his head a little, when Miss Paulette knocked on his door again. 3 quick taps, no pause. He opened it and found her standing there in her house robe, holding a mug, and staring off down the street like she'd seen a ghost. "You might want to come out here, baby." He stepped onto the porch. At first he didn't see anything, just his neighbor's cat creeping across the sidewalk and a trash can tipped over from the night before. Then, from the corner of the block, 1, then another, then 5 more, 7 black SUVs, turning slowly onto his street. But they didn't park at the curb. They rolled straight up the narrow driveway of Darnell's duplex. Jerome stepped out from across the street. "Oh, snap. Bro, they back." Miss Paulette clutched her mug tighter. "They came for you now." Darnell didn't move, didn't panic. He just stood there, watching. The SUVs stopped in perfect sync, tight formation, engines running, windows still tinted. It was quiet enough to hear a sprinkler ticking 3 lawns over. Then, just like at Victor's house, the doors opened. Out stepped the same crew, same sharp clothes, calm faces. No weapons, no shouting. One man walked forward this time, tall, dark skin, square jaw, low fade, maybe mid-40s. Calm eyes, like the kind of calm that only comes with experience, or power. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps and looked up at Darnell. "You Darnell Booker?" "Yeah." The man nodded once, reached into his inside jacket pocket, pulled out a second envelope, thicker this time. "Ms. Rayner wanted you to have this." Darnell took it slow. The man stepped back. "She said to tell you this isn't a gift. It's an invitation." Darnell raised a brow. "To what?" The man cracked the smallest smile. "To something that fits your heart better than that old job ever could." Before Darnell could say another word, the man turned and walked back to his SUV. The others followed. Doors shut, engines rumbled low. They pulled out as smoothly as they came, one after another, turning the corner without a single horn or screech. Gone. He didn't open the envelope right away. His hands were trembling, not from fear, from not knowing what this meant. He finally sat down and tore the seal. Inside was a single-page letter, clean font, watermarked paper. It read, "Darnell, I don't believe in handouts, but I do believe in investing in good people who still know the value of kindness. My grandmother doesn't ask for help often. She didn't need to. But the way you treated her, without knowing who she was, told me everything I needed to know. I'm offering you a new opportunity, one with real purpose, real impact. If you're interested, call this number. Ask for Colleen. Either way, thank you. You reminded my family what integrity looks like. SR." At the bottom was a black business card with a phone number, no name. Just that same falcon emblem again. Jerome paced on the sidewalk. "Man, you in some kind of movie right now." Miss Paulette just kept nodding. "You reap what you sow, baby. You sowed good." Darnell sat back in his chair, envelope in one hand, card in the other. His phone buzzed. Tyree again. "You see the news yet?" "No, why?" "Victor's shop, boarded up. For sale sign already in the window. Man dipped out of town last night. Somebody said he left a note on the door talking about personal reasons. Darnell didn't say a word, just looked out at the road where those black SUVs had been. But he wasn't thinking about Victor anymore. He was thinking about what kind of job makes a woman with that kind of reach send 7 cars to your house, just to say thank you. Before Darnell called the number, he needed answers. He had too much respect to just jump into something blind, especially when the people involved moved the way Simone Rayner did. So he went back to the one place in town where secrets didn't stay secret for long, Midtown Barbershop, owned by a guy named Reggie who'd been cutting hair, listening, and telling half the truth since the early 90s. Reggie had a radio voice and a memory like a steel trap. When Darnell walked in, Reggie looked up from lining a kid's fade and said, "You finally here to ask about Ms. Loretta?" Darnell froze. "You knew?" "Man, everybody knew after that video. What you didn't know is who she used to be. Sit down." Reggie took his time. The kid's haircut came first. Then he cleaned his clippers, wiped the chair, and finally looked Darnell in the face. Her full name's Loretta Jamison Rayner, born in 1938. Taught school for 35 years. History, social studies, civic rights, you name it. She marched in the 60s, helped desegregate the old library on 5th Street. Darnell nodded slowly. "Real quiet lady. Never made noise about her past. Folks don't realize she helped found Eastline Legal Defense Fund, back when it was just a group of 5 teachers in a church basement." He paused. "You remember that case last year? That black nurse who got let go for speaking up about the conditions at Pine Lake Care Home?" "Yeah," Darnell said. "They sued, right?" "Won, 8 figures. That was Simone's work. Her grandmother coached her through it. Now it made sense. That bike wasn't just an old ride. It was her independence, her story, maybe even her pride." "You fixed more than a chain," Reggie said. "You showed her you still got people in this world who do the right thing when nobody's watching." Darnell sat quiet. Reggie leaned forward. "They don't show up in black cars unless they think you matter. Simone doesn't throw her name around. If she's offering something, it's big, bigger than this town." That afternoon, Darnell sat in his truck for a full 20 minutes before picking up the phone. He called the number. A woman picked up, warm voice, calm. "Colleen speaking." "This is Darnell Booker. I was told to ask for you." There was no pause, no who. "We've been expecting your call, Mr. Booker." 3 days later, he was on a train headed to Austin. First-class ticket, hotel room paid for, clothes cleaned and pressed, courtesy of a man who knocked on his door holding garment bags like he was delivering for a fashion shoot. He didn't ask for any of it, but somehow everything fit just right. The meeting took place in a modest-looking building near the Capitol. Nothing flashy, but inside, every room felt like it mattered. No wasted space, no loud colors, just focus. Colleen met him in the lobby, slim, maybe late 30s, glasses, sharp suit. She smiled and led him to a conference room. Inside sat Simone Rayner. She stood when he entered, shorter than he expected, silver streaks through her hair, a presence that filled the room without her having to raise her voice. "Mr. Booker," she said, extending her hand, "my grandmother told me all about you." He shook it, firm and steady. "I don't really know what to say." She motioned to the chair. "Then I'll talk first." For the next half hour, she laid it all out. Her foundation was launching a new initiative, repair training and mentorship for underprivileged youth. Auto repair, HVAC, plumbing, trades that paid well and changed lives. They had funding, facilities, instructors. What they didn't have? Someone to lead the first site. Someone local, respected, patient, hands-on. Someone who still believed in fixing things. And people. That's why she chose him. Darnell sat still. "Why me?" Simone folded her hands. "Because you didn't do it for attention. You didn't know who she was. You helped because it was the right thing. That's the kind of man I want leading my first program." He looked down, then back up. "I ain't got no college degree, just grease on my hands and a beat-up truck." She smiled. "Good. That means you're exactly who they'll listen to." And in that moment, Darnell realized this wasn't just a second chance. It was his first real calling. A month later, the auto shop on Broad Street was boarded up. The for sale sign out front had faded from sun exposure. Weeds crept through the cracks in the parking lot. The place looked like it had been abandoned for years, not weeks. Victor Redmond never came back. No one knew where he went. Some said he moved down near Corpus. Others said he had debts. A few joked he probably got run out of town by a woman with more power than the mayor. But Darnell, he wasn't worried about Victor. He was busy building something better. In the old East Side Tech building, they gutted the front room and repainted the walls, hung up banners with bold words like mentorship and equity and craft. New toolkits lined the back walls, stacks of tires in one corner, engine blocks in another, wiring, brake pads, soldering irons, all donated. And right at the front door, a new sign in bold black letters, Booker Center for Trade Excellence. He never asked for it to be named after him. Simone did it without telling him. When he saw it for the first time, he stood in front of it for almost 5 full minutes. Didn't say a word. The first group of young men and women arrived 2 weeks after that. Some had just aged out of foster care. Some had dropped out of school. A couple had records. All of them needed something they hadn't been given before. A shot that came without judgment. Darnell didn't talk like a CEO. He didn't wear suits. He still had grease under his nails most days. But when he talked, they listened. "Look," he said one morning, standing in front of 8 teens and early 20s kids who were halfway convinced they'd already missed their chance. "I didn't get here because I knew somebody. I got here because I didn't walk past somebody when they needed help. That's it." He held up a wrench. "You know what this is?" One kid shrugged. "A wrench? Nope. It's a key. You learn how to use this. You never gotta beg nobody for work again." They leaned in, and just like that, he had them. One afternoon, a silver SUV pulled up out front. The back door opened, and out stepped Loretta Rayner, holding her cane, but walking just fine. Darnell walked out to meet her. "You getting around better now?" he asked. She smiled. "Still don't trust hills, but flat ground's mine again." He nodded. "You didn't have to come out here." "I did," she said, "because I wanted to see it with my own eyes." She looked up at the building, at the name above the door. "They'll remember this place, and they'll remember you." He didn't know what to say, so he just said, "Thank you." She shook her head. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You gave me a reason to tell my granddaughter to get involved." They stood quietly a moment longer. She touched his arm. "And for the record, that bike still rides smooth as butter." On the walls inside the center, Darnell put up a photo. It was just a snapshot, one someone took the day of that viral video. Loretta holding her bike, smiling. He added a caption under it, written by hand. "You never know who you're helping when you choose to be kind." A few months later, Simone Rayner came down to speak at the grand opening. Press showed up, local politicians, big donors. But during her speech, she turned away from the cameras and looked at the students behind her. "If we want to change the world, we start by honoring the quiet people," she said, "the ones who don't wait for permission to do good. That's why we're standing in a building named after a man who chose kindness when no one was looking." Applause echoed through the hall. But Darnell? He stayed at the back, arms crossed, watching the young people scribble notes, ask questions, talk about torque and timing belts. That was the real reward. Some people dream of fame. Others chase fortune. Darnell never wanted either. All he ever wanted was to be useful, to do right. And somehow, that small moment, fixing a bike for an old woman in the heat of the day, turned into something bigger than he could have imagined. Because the truth is, the good you do when nobody's watching might be the very thing that rewrites your future. Help without expecting a return. Treat people right. Don't wait for a reason. You never know who's watching or who you're helping. Because when you move with heart, the world finds a way to meet you where you are. If this story made you feel something, don't just let it sit. Go help somebody today. Hold a door, fix a flat, say something kind. Give without looking back. It might not make the news, but it will make a difference.